Hi, I'm Raf, and in this video, we're going to be solving the Soroban Live Quest 3 called Reverse Engineer. In this quest, they've already deployed a contract called Reverse Engineer Contract to the network. They give you the public key for the account. You have to go and find the contract ID for this contract. And then once you have that contract ID, you're going to have to invoke a specific function in that contract and give it the right argument. So at the bottom here in the CLI, let's just make sure we're using the FutureNet bash. That way we're actually interacting with the FutureNet. Once we're ready, we're going to go SQ, play, and then select the quest that we're doing. In this case, we're playing Quest 3. Hey, do you want to fund this account? Yes. If my account's already been funded, this would give me an error. There you go. Perfect. Account funded. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to copy paste this, or we're going to copy this public key, and we're going to go over to our sweet old friend, the Cellular Laboratory. So let's go and explore information about this account. We're going to go to Explore Endpoints, and what we're looking for is an operation that created a contract. So we're going to go over into Operations, and then Operations for a specific account. In here, we're to give it the public key that we have, the account ID, and then we're going to click on Submit. We're going to get some JSON, and if we scroll down in the records here, we'll find function, host function, create contract with source account. This is where we're deploying the contract. And you can also see footprint. Now, the footprint is all of the contract data entries associated with the contract ID. So all the keys that it stores the information with is all within the footprint. So we can actually go and use the footprint to find our contract ID. You're going to notice that it's in a weird format of letters, numbers, and symbols. This is called XDR. It's a format that's optimized for communication across the network. We can actually go and decode this XDR to more of a human readable format. So that's what we're going to do. Right now it's in base 64. So going back to the Git pod here, we're going to type it in the CLI, Soroban, XDR, decode, and then we're going to set the command line option to the specific type of ledger footprints. And then we are giving the command line option of XDR, and then pasting in our XDR and saying that we want an output of a JSON. There you go. So you're going to see here all the data that it's holding. And one of the pieces that it's holding is the contract ID, which we're going to need to use to invoke. In this quest, using footprint works well. And the reason why is because the footprint only holds one contract ID. But in a future quest, if there was multiple different contracts that were used within a transaction, all of them would be in the footprints. And that might be kind of confusing to figure out which one was the contract ID that was created by this public key. For now, we're good. You'll also notice that I specified the ledger footprint record to decode. You can actually go and find all the different records you can decode in the CLI by going Soroban, XDR, decode, type, and then here writing help, and it will tell you all the different records you can go and decode the XDR from. Okay, so now we have the contract ID. We need to figure out which function we're going to be invoking. So heading over into our directories here under 3 and source, in our lib.rs here, we can see that it's called the reverse engineer contract, so we're on the right one. We're defining the value of a secret, which is a symbol value. A symbol value is a value that is less than 10 characters long. And then the value that we're using is dancing Raf. So the submit function only takes one argument, and it's the secret. And it returns either true or false. And it tells you if you got the answer correct. So when we're invoking this ID, we're going to invoke the submit function, and then we're going to use an argument of, and the secret is dancing raf. Okay, so down here in my CLI, I can go Soroban, invoke. I can specify the ID that I discovered. That's right here. And I can paste it in. And then I am going to use a function. The function is called submit. And then the argument that I'm using is spelled the same way, dancing raf. And submit it. There you go, success equals true. That means that I have now solved this quest, and I can go SQ and check, and I am checking quest number 3. And if I did this properly, it says, I haven't yet completed KYC or uploaded my tax documents. Would you like to still complete? I would not like to complete because this is a tutorial. And how would you like to sign? I'll sign in. And it'll give me a pop-up, which I can then go and claim my reward. So that's everything for this quest. In the next portion of this video, I'm going to go through different kind of paths that you can have used to solve this, and maybe some extra information that was provided in the README. So if you're still curious about that, follow along. Otherwise, that's it, that's solved. Another way you could have found the contract ID earlier would have been through the transaction meta. To do that in the Stellar Lab, you would have had 2 options, either operations or transactions. If you would have gone through the transactions endpoint and specified transactions for account, the only challenge you would have found was figuring out which transaction deployed the contract. If you go through operations for account, and specify your public key, it's a little bit easier because we can go and find where the contract was deployed. And then scrolling a little bit back up here, we can find the transaction link that deployed this contract. So let's go ahead and click on that. And let's go and look up this transaction. And then scrolling down here, we have our result meta XDR. And this actually holds all of the code that created the contract. Lots of good information here. Let's go and click on this XDR. You're going to notice, if you scroll down this XDR viewer here, you should find the contract data, which also has the contract ID, but it might be under XDR format. We can go and manually decode this. So here I'm using CyberChef. I'll post this link into my comments in my YouTube video. But here I put the input of base64 and I'm converting it to hex without any spaces. And here you go. Here's the output. This is my contract ID. Another way I could have done this is grab the transaction meta XDR, and in my Git pod, I'm just going to paste my XDR down here. I could have done Soroban XDR decode, paste it in my XDR, and then said output JSON. And that would have given me actually a much better format. I can actually see the contract ID already decoded. And it actually also gives me the WASM file outputted for me, which is kind of cool because you can actually go and, just like in the README here, if you scroll down all the way to the end here, it says, are you curious? Go on ahead, read along. And if you click on that, it's going to give you this echo. So you can actually specify the WASM hex, which is this. And then you can tell it to output the WASM locally into your Git pod. And then you can interact locally with this WASM file. However, if you would have solved it this way, all you would have needed was to use the contract ID that's decoded and then invoke the submit function and using, again, the argument of dancing raf. So I hope that helped. If all these videos are helping you, please make sure to like and subscribe. See you later.